Hi everyone, this is Nour and today's lecture is about phonetics and phonology. Mainly we will be reviewing chapter 8, which is all about the structure of the English syllable. Well, the syllable is a very important unit. Most people seem to believe that even if they cannot define what a syllable is, they can count how many syllables there are in a given word or a sentence. However, there are words consist only of only one syllable, while there are other words consist of two syllables, three syllables, so on. You know that in English language that we have consonants and we have vowels, and they are together, they create the vowel itself. In this chapter, we will understand how these syllables are created and how that consonants and vowels work together to create syllables that can consist of different parts and structure. I believe that most of you understand the difference between consonants and vowels. That's why we have to differentiate between them so that we can on the syllables. As we see here, we have something we call the onset, we have something we call peak and coda. These are the structure of the syllable. Peak is the center or the nucleus of the word that has one syllable, and it's preceded by onsets and followed by coda. Onsets refer for the consonants precede the vowel, and coda refer for the consonants that follow the vowel. So that in this lecture we are going to explain in details what is the onset and what is the peak and coda as well, and the components of each part and position. So these three parts will create what we call the syllable in the English language. However, just for your general information, this is the general plan of the structure of the English syllable. We are going to work on different words which has different structure. Now let's move on to what we call the syllable, the definition, and let's have some information about it. The syllable, in short, is a unit of a phonological organization whose central component is a nucleus, which is normally a vowel and which may be preceded or followed by consonants. And when we say a vowel here, we also mean actually the diphthong, which is the combination of two vowels at the same time. And the difference is, and we have to know that the first vowel in the diphthong tends to be longer and stronger than the second one. As we all know that syllables might have create words when they come together or when they are alone. As we mentioned before, we have syllables, we have words to we have words that consist of only one syllable, and also we have words that consist of many syllables at the same time. So the syllable is a unit phonological organization whose central component is the nucleus. We mean in this point the nucleus is the vowel, or as we mentioned, it's the diphthong, and it can be the peak, which is normally a vowel and which may be preceded or followed by consonants. So when the consonants precede the vowel or the peak, we call them the onset position, or followed by consonants, we call the coda position. In addition, the nucleus refers to the peak or the center of the syllable, which is normally a vowel like the long E in these two words, like key and B here. And as we mentioned before, that this chapter relies mostly on the transcription of the English words. So the correct transcription will lead for the correct structure analysis in this chapter. So you have to pay attention and be careful when you transcribe the English words before doing analysis for them. As a matter of fact, the syllable might have different types as we presenting here. We have one, two, three, four types here. And the first one, we call it the minimum syllable, which is a single vowel in isolation, preceded and followed by silence like the word ah. As we can see here, there is no consonants and no consonants before or after the vowel, which we call it the peak in the analysis. So when we have a word has only the nucleus or the center and has no consonants before or after, we call this kind of syllables by the minimum syllable, which is a single vowel in isolation. Sometimes some syllables have an onset, like in the word key. When we say there's an onset, it means we have consonants just before the vowel, as this example shows the long E preceded by the K sound here. In addition, syllables may have no onset, zero onset, but have a coda, like in the word So when it's zero onset, it refers to the situation where you have no consonants before the vowel in the syllable. And finally, we have the syllable may have both onset and coda. And there are several examples like in the word fill, which has short E sound and preceded by fe and le sound. Just for your information, that we need to understand these four types in order to analyze the structure of syllables that we might have. So when we have zero onset, we have to understand we have no consonants before the vowel. And when we say zero coda, it means we have no consonants following the vowel or the peak in the syllable. So these types that we have will enable us to create a correct structure in the English syllable that we have. And now let's move on to the explanation, the onset and coda. These two terms are very, very important in this analysis structure. When we say the onset, as we mentioned before, it means the consonants preceding the nucleus of the syllable, just like the example in the word fill. The coda means the consonants following the nucleus of the syllable, as in the le sound here. As we understand, we see that the transcription is very important to get a correct answer. So you have to pay attention for your transcription before proceeding more for the analysis that you have. By the way, I recommend you to read the book itself in order to understand the information and the chapter. You have to read the chapter word by word in order to have full understanding about the syllable in the English language, because this chapter is the base to understand the following chapters, because they are all connected together. As we mentioned before, it's a matter of understanding step by step. So you can't miss one chapter following the next one. So it's a matter of understanding. So you have to keep good attention for your understanding. As we mentioned, you have to understand the consonants, and you have to understand the vowels, diphthongs, and you have to understand we have different types of syllables, as we mentioned here, so that it will be a good knowledge for you as a base to understand the following chapters easily. This is what I recommend actually. Now we have to look at this structure as we presented it before, and we understood what does it mean peak, coda, or what is the onset. So you have to understand when you say onset, it refers to the consonants precede the vowel. And if you say coda, it refers to the consonants that follow the vowel. As you can see, like we have three parts here. We have onset, peak, and coda. The onset has three parts. It is a maximum. It is the number, it is the maximum number of consonants that the syllable in the English language that might have. And this is exactly how coda is. So it starts with pre-initial for the first and the very beginning consonant that you have is the pre-initial, and then you move on to the initial part as well as the post-initial. And we have here in the coda, we have pre-final, we have final, post-final, post-final 2, and post-final 3. So the maximum number for the coda part position is 5 consonants, while in the onset we have only 3 consonants as a maximum number. Actually, there is a very important question that we have to ask, and we have to all to know that. Is it always pre-initial for the first consonant, or the pre-final is always for the first consonant? Actually, the answer is no, because there are specific consonants that take pre-initial and pre-final. So a group of sounds, they have to be located in order to create the pre-initial part or the pre-final, the coda part. So in the next slides, we are going to understand which sound we have to have in order to create pre-initial part, and what are the sounds that we need to create the pre-final part in order to create to follow by final and the structure as we said here. Now let's move on to the next slide that we have to explain with example the structure of the English syllable. For example, we have the word print. As you see here, it's a word consists of one syllable only. And in order to understand how many syllables do we have in the English language, we have actually to count how many vowels do we have. For example, if we have one vowel, it has one syllable. And if we have two vowels, it means that we have two syllables in this word. But we have to pay attention to the diphthong sounds. There are two vowels at the same time, but they consider as a one vowel, as we understand. Okay, so let's have a look at the onset part and the coda. And this is the transcription of the word print. So let's start with the P sound, and we have the vowel as the short E. So the first two consonants which precede the vowel are called the onset part. And the consonants here that follow the vowel, we call them the coda. In the following slides, we are going to understand and explain in details how that the onset position can be divided as well as coda. Now let's move on to the next slide that we have to show an example of the onset meaning as we have here. The onset means the consonants preceding the peak of the syllable, as we have just said. That's why it's created with the same color. And the nucleus is also called the peak, or the center of the syllable, which is in the red color, and it's the center here. And by the way, when we say the center, it doesn't necessarily mean it should have to be in the middle of the syllable or the word. When we say the center or the peak, it's actually the vowel of the syllable. And here the coda means the consonants following the peak of the syllable, as we have here. So in this slide, we explain the onset and coda. And we have something we say like pre-initial and pre-final, as we mentioned before. So if you have the se sound, we have to create the pre-initial part. And if we have the nasal sounds as well as the le and se sounds, we have the pre-final. So when you have a pre-initial, it's clear that we have initial after that, and then post-initial. Depends on the syllable that we have. And if you have pre-final, we will have final and post-final and so on. Okay, so we need to have these sounds, not letters by the way, sounds, in order to create a pre-initial and pre-final. In this example, the questions will be almost in that way. Analyze the structure of the following one-syllable word, as like speed, now, fill. It's all have one syllable, and if you check that in your dictionary, you will find out that you have only one vowel. So the first step, in order to solve this question, you have to transcribe the word. So the word speed, it's transcribed in this way. As you can see, we have only one vowel and preceded by two sounds and followed by one sound. So as long as we have the first sound in the se sound, so the first part in the onset is pre-initial, and the next one, the p sound, is initial. So it's a matter of process. If you have pre-initial, it will be followed by initial and then post-initial in other cases. And as long as we have the d sound here, we don't have the nasals or le and se sound. In this way, we have the final part in the coda position. So this is just to explain in details and in a simple way to understand the process of analyzing the structure of the following one syllable word. So I recommend you to have a look at the book and to read all the chapter word by word to understand the knowledge there, because now we are mentioning the information shortly, but in the book you can get a full explanation for it. So I wish you good luck and thank you very much.